The alien ships filled the sky above the human colony. Commander Lisa Morgan stood in the control room and watched her screens. Each red dot meant another enemy ship. There were hundreds of them. The Criterion Armada had come to take their world. Lisa's hands shook as she held the edge of the table. She had been fighting for 3 days without sleep. Her uniform was dirty and torn. Around her, the other officers looked just as tired. They all knew the truth. They were going to lose. Shield power is down to 12%, Jake Sullivan said. He was young, only 25, but the war had made him look older. His blue eyes stayed on his screen as he spoke. We can't take much more. Lisa nodded. She knew. Under their feet, 3 million people hid in shelters. Men, women, and children waited for help that might never come. The colony of Kepler 442b was far from Earth. Too far. How long until Earth ships arrive? Lisa asked, though she already knew the answer. 6 days, Jake said quietly. If they're coming at all. 6 days? Lisa almost laughed. They wouldn't last 6 hours. The Criterions were too strong. Their weapons were too powerful. Every ship Earth had sent to help had been destroyed. The colonists were alone. Another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. On the screens, another defense satellite disappeared. The Criterions were taking their defenses apart, piece by piece. Soon, there would be nothing left. Commander, we have an incoming message, Amy Chun called out. She worked at the communication station. Her black hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She had been at her post for days, just like everyone else. From Earth? Lisa asked, feeling a spark of hope. No, Amy said, frowning at her screen. It's different. The main screen flickered. A face appeared. It was a human face, but not like any soldier Lisa had seen. The man had scars across his cheek. His eyes were gray and cold. He wore a black helmet that looked like nothing from Earth's regular forces. Commander Morgan, the man said. His voice was rough. I'm Colonel Rick Hawkins. We're coming to help. Lisa stared at the screen. Colonel, we haven't received word of any rescue ships. That's because we're not in ships, Hawkins said. A smile crossed his scarred face. It wasn't a nice smile. We're the 77th Orbital Drop Shock Battalion. We'll be there in 40 minutes. 40 minutes? Jake Sullivan stood up from his station. That's impossible. There are no Earth ships within. We don't eat ships, Hawkins cut him off. We're dropping straight from orbit. I suggest you pull your people back. Things are about to get messy. The screen went black. Lisa looked at her officers. They all had the same confused look on their faces. The 77th? Amy Chun whispered. I've heard stories. What stories? Lisa asked. They say the 77th aren't normal soldiers. They say Earth changed them, made them into something else. Something that can survive things that would kill anyone else. Lisa wanted to hope. She wanted to believe help was coming. But 40 minutes? How could anyone reach them in 40 minutes without ships? Another explosion rocked the building. This one was closer. The lights flickered and went out for a moment before the backup power kicked. In shields at 8%, Jake reported. His voice was steady, but Lisa could hear the fear underneath. She made her decision. Pull all forces back to the inner defense line. If these soldiers are really coming, we need to give them room to work. Her officers jumped to follow her orders. Across the colony, human defenders began to retreat. They left the outer positions empty. It looked like surrender, but Lisa didn't care. If there was even a chance, Commander, Amy called out. I'm picking up strange readings from high orbit. 300 small objects. They're moving fast, really fast. How fast? Lisa asked. Amy's face went pale. 30,000 miles per hour and accelerating. At that speed, they'll burn up when they hit the atmosphere. Lisa felt her hope die. Whatever Colonel Hawkins had planned, it was suicide. No one could survive entering atmosphere at that speed. The friction would turn them into flames. Maybe. Their missiles? Jake suggested. Some new weapon? But Lisa shook her head. She had seen the Colonel's eyes. Those were the eyes of a man who had looked death in the face and laughed. Whatever was falling toward them wasn't missiles, Dot. It was men. The minutes ticked by slowly. Each second brought more destruction. The Crytherian ships pressed closer. There. Energy beams carved deep wounds in the colony's buildings. Fires burned across the city. Smoke filled the air. 5 minutes until the objects reach atmosphere, Amy announced. Lisa watched the tactical display. The 300 dots were moving faster than anything she had ever seen. The computer kept flashing warnings. Impossible velocity. Certain destruction. No chance of survival. But still they came. "Commander, look at this," Jake called out. He brought up a new display. The Crytherian ships. They're not reacting to the incoming objects. Their sensors aren't even tracking them. Lisa studied the screen. Jake was right. The alien fleet continued its attack as if nothing was happening. They hadn't noticed 300 objects screaming toward them from space. They're too small. Amy realized, too fast. The Crytherian sensors are designed for ships and missiles, not for individual soldiers, Lisa finished. The room fell silent, except for the sound of explosions outside. They all understood now. Earth hadn't sent ships. Earth had sent men. Men willing to throw themselves at the planet like human meteors. 2 minutes to atmospheric entry, Amy said softly. Lisa walked to the window. Outside, the sky burned with enemy fire. The great towers of the colony were falling one by one. In the distance, she could see Crytherian dropships landing. Soon their ground forces would arrive. But high above, invisible to the eye, 300 soldiers were falling. Falling faster than any human had ever fallen before. Falling toward certain death? Or maybe not. "All units, this is Commander Morgan." Lisa spoke into her communicator. "Hold your positions. Reinforcements are inbound. I repeat, reinforcements are inbound." She didn't tell them what kind of reinforcements. She didn't tell them about soldiers dropping from space without ships. They wouldn't believe her anyway. The tactical display showed the objects entering the atmosphere. At their speed, they should have become fireballs instantly. But something strange happened. The dots didn't disappear. They kept coming, surrounded by a strange energy signature the computer couldn't identify. "What am I seeing?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Amy answered. "The readings don't make sense. It's like space is bending around them." Lisa remembered old stories from Earth. Stories about soldiers who had been changed, enhanced, given abilities that pushed the boundaries of what was human. She had never believed them. Now, watching 300 impossible objects fall toward her world, she began to wonder. 1 minute to impact, Amy announced. Her voice shook with excitement and fear. Outside, the Crytherian bombardment continued. The aliens had no idea what was coming. They thought they had won. They thought the humans were beaten. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lisa gripped the windowsill and watched the burning sky. Somewhere up there, Colonel Hawkins and his soldiers were falling. Falling at speeds that should kill them. Falling toward an enemy that outnumbered them 1,000 to 1. But they were still coming. 30 seconds. Amy counted down. Lisa could see them now. Tiny streaks of light in the sky. They looked like shooting stars. 300 shooting stars. Falling in perfect formation. The Crytherians finally noticed. Their ships began to turn, weapons swiveling toward the new threat. But it was too late. 10 seconds. The streaks grew brighter, closer. The air itself seemed to scream as they passed through it. 5 seconds. Lisa held her breath. Impact. First soldier hit a Krytherian battleship, and the universe changed forever. High above the planet, Danny Rodriguez floated in empty space. His body was wrapped in black armor that cost more than most cities. Inside the armor, his blood burned with chemicals that would kill a normal person in seconds. But Danny wasn't normal anymore. None of them were. 300 soldiers hung in the void like dark angels. Each one sealed inside what the scientists called a heavy assault reconnaissance pod. The soldiers had a different name for them. They called them coffins. Because once you got in, there was a good chance you weren't getting out. And he checked his systems one more time. Everything showed green. The armor's power core hummed against his chest. The quantum field generators were ready. His weapons were locked and loaded. In a few minutes, he would either be a hero or a memory. Listen up, hellhounds. Colonel Hawkins. Voice came through the neural link. The colonel's thoughts appeared directly in Danny's mind. It was strange, but after 2 years of training, he was used to it. You all know what we're about to do. You all know it's supposed to be impossible. Danny grinned inside his helmet. Impossible was their specialty. The Krytherians think they understand war, Hawkins continued. They've studied our ships, our tactics, our weapons. They think they know our limits. They're about to find out that humans don't have limits. We just have prices we're willing to pay. Around Danny, his squad floated in perfect formation. Katie Blake was to his left. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but Danny had seen her tear through a steel wall with her bare hands. To his right was Bill Harrison, a mountain of a man even before the enhancements. Now he was something beyond human. Sergeant Rodriguez. Report, Hawkins ordered. Alpha Squad ready, sir, Danny replied through the neural link. All systems green. Everyone's eager to fly. Fly? Blake's voice carried a laugh. More like fall with style. Can it, Blake? Danny said, but he was smiling too. Joking helped with the fear. Because despite all their training, despite all their enhancements, they were about to do something insane. They were going to drop from orbit without a ship. They were going to fall toward the planet at speeds that turned air into plasma. They were going to hit the enemy fleet like bullets from God's own gun. And somehow, they were going to survive. Beginning drop sequence, the AI announced in Danny's ear. Warning. Probability of survival using standard parameters. 0%. Good thing we don't use standard parameters, Harrison muttered. Danny felt the pod's engines warming up behind him. In a few seconds, they would fire. They would push him toward the planet at speeds that broke every rule of safe orbital entry. The only thing keeping him alive would be the exotic matter field generated by his armor. A field that bent space itself around him. The scientists said it would work. They had shown him the math. Danny didn't understand the math, but he understood. One thing. Sometimes, when people were counting on you, you had to trust in the impossible. Remember your training, Danny told his squad. High-speed entry, maximum disruption on impact. We hit them hard, and we hit them fast. By the time they know we're there, it'll be too late. Roger that, Sarge, Blake replied. Time to show these aliens why humans are the scariest thing in the galaxy. Danny thought about Earth. He thought about his sister and her kids. They lived on Mars now, safe from the war. But if colonies like Kepler 442b fell, nowhere would be safe. The Krytherians would keep coming. They would take world after world until they reached the core systems, unless someone stopped them here. Engines hot in 10 seconds, the AI announced. Danny's enhanced muscles tensed. Even with all the modifications to his body, What came next would hurt. The acceleration alone would crush a normal human into paste. The heat of atmospheric entry would cook them alive. Danny and his squad weren't normal humans anymore. They were weapons. 5 seconds. Danny took a deep breath. The air tasted metallic in his helmet. His enhanced lungs could process oxygen at 10 times the normal rate. He would need every bit of that efficiency in the next few minutes. 3 seconds. He felt the armor system syncing with his nervous system. His thoughts became the armor's commands. His will became its action. They were one being now, human and machine united. In purpose, 1 second. See you on the ground, hellhounds. Hawkins shouted. The engines fired. Danny had trained for this moment for 2 years. He had run countless simulations. But nothing prepared him for the real thing. The acceleration hit him like a giant's fist. Even with his reinforced bones and enhanced muscles, he felt his body compress. The pod rocketed forward, leaving orbit behind. His vision blurred as the Gi forces climbed beyond what any human should survive. But the chemicals in his blood kept him conscious. The armor's internal dampeners kept his organs from liquefying. Barely. Speed at 10,000 miles per hour and climbing. The AI reported within human calm. Outside the pod's tiny window, stars streaked past like white lines. The planet grew larger with each second. Danny could see the Terminator line between day and night. Could see the clouds swirling in the atmosphere. Could see the tiny flashes of light that marked the battle raging below. 20,000 miles per hour. His squad's vital signs flickered on his display. All green, though Blake's heart rate was spiking. Danny couldn't blame her. His own heart was hammering against his ribs like it wanted to escape. 30,000 miles per hour. Entering upper atmosphere in 30 seconds. This was it, the moment of truth. Either the exotic matter field would protect them, or they would become the galaxy's fastest human torches. Danny activated the field generator. He felt it more than heard it, a deep thrumming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The space around his pod began to twist. Reality bent like light through a prism. Field stable, the AI confirmed. Atmospheric entry in 10 seconds. Through the neural link, Danny could feel his entire squad. 300 minds united in purpose. 300 weapons falling toward the enemy. The Critherians had made a mistake. They had threatened humanity. They had backed humans into a corner. Now they would learn why that was the last mistake any species should make. Entry in 5 seconds. Brace for thermal shock. Danny gritted his teeth. Here it came. The pod hit atmosphere like a hammer hitting an anvil. The temperature displays went crazy, showing numbers that should have meant instant death. The pod's outer shell glowed white-hot. But inside the exotic matter field, Danny felt only warmth. It was working. The impossible, insane plan was actually working. Hull temperature exceeding safe parameters, the AI warned. Compensating. Danny watched the altitude numbers falling fast. Below him, the Critherian fleet grew larger. He could make out individual ships now. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Sleek destroyers that could glass a city in minutes. Hundreds of them, all focused on destroying the human colony. They hadn't noticed the falling stars above them. Their sensors, calibrated for ships. And missiles, couldn't track objects this small moving this fast. By the time they realized the danger, it would be too late. 60 seconds to impact, the AI announced. Recommend final weapons check. Danny's hands moved over his controls with practiced ease. Plasma sword charged. Rail rifle loaded with hypervelocity rounds. Micro missiles armed. He was a one-man army wrapped in armor that defied physics. Alpha Squad, sound off, he ordered. Blake, ready to rock. Harrison, ready to roll. Martinez ready to raise hell. One by one, his squad reported in. 10 soldiers who had trained together, bled together, and now fell together toward what be their death. 30 seconds to impact, initiating final approach sequence. The pod's engines fired again, adjusting his trajectory. Danny was aimed at the largest ship in the Criterion fleet, their flagship. Cut off the head, and the body would falter. Through the window, he could see the ship's shields shimmering. Energy barriers that could stop a nuclear missile. But Danny wasn't a missile. He was something far more dangerous, Dot. He was a human with nothing left to lose. 10 seconds. Brace for impact. Danny's enhanced eyes could see the individual weapon ports on the ship. Could see the viewing windows where alien crew members were probably going about their duties, confident in their superiority. 5 seconds. He activated the breach charges. When he hit, the pod would peel open like a deadly flower. A kinetic energy would punch him through the shields and into the ship itself. 3 seconds. Danny thought of Earth, of humanity scattered across the stars, of 3 million colonists counting on him. 1 second. He smiled. Impact. Admiral Kethvar watched the tactical display with satisfaction. 4 of his eyes tracked different data streams, while his primary brain processed the battle's progress. The human colony was breaking. Their shields flickered like dying candles. Soon, this world would belong to the Empire. Excellent work, Admiral, his second-in-command said. Sub-Commander Vextian's scales rippled with pleasure. The humans fall as easily as predicted. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in agreement. Humans were soft, weak. They died too easily. Their ships were primitive. Their weapons were outdated. The only reason they had spread so far across the galaxy was luck. That luck had run out. Order the ground forces to prepare, Kethvar commanded. Once the shields fall, I want swift occupation. The humans will make acceptable servants once properly trained. Yes, Admiral. I will. Vexton stopped mid-sentence. His 4 eyes widened. Admiral, the sensors are detecting something. More human ships? Kethvar asked without concern. Every rescue attempt had been crushed easily. No, Admiral. Something else. Multiple small objects approaching at. This cannot be correct. Kethvar turned his massive head toward the sensor station. Explain. 300 objects, each no larger than an escape pod. They're traveling at 10% light speed and accelerating. Impact with the fleet in 20 seconds. 10% light speed? Kethvar's primary brain raced through possibilities. Kinetic weapons? Suicide drones? At that velocity, even small. Objects would carry tremendous force. All ships raise shields to maximum. Point defense systems online. He roared, but it was too late. The first pod hit his flagship's shields like the fist of an angry god. The energy barriers, designed to stop laser fire and missiles, meant nothing to an object wrapped in exotic matter traveling at relativistic speeds. The pod punched through as if the shields were made of paper. Corporal Jason Lee felt the impact. Through every cell in his enhanced body. The breach charges detonated on schedule, peeling his pod apart and launching him into the Criterion ship. His armor, still glowing from atmospheric entry, carved through 3 decks of alien metal like a hot knife through butter. He landed in a crouch, servo-assisted legs absorbing the impact. His tactical display immediately populated with data. Deck plans uploaded by Earth Intelligence. Critical systems highlighted in red. Primary target, the gravity generator. Lee moved before the Criterions could process what had happened. His plasma blade ignited with a sound like tearing silk. The first alien he encountered didn't even have time to scream. The blade passed through its armored torso as if it wasn't there. More Criterions poured into the corridor. Energy beams filled the air. Lee's shields flared, dissipating the attacks. His rail rifle spoke in response, hypervelocity rounds turning the air into thunder. Each shot found its mark, guided by an AI that thought faster than any organic mind. He carved his way deeper into the ship. Behind him, he could hear explosions as more pods impacted. His brothers and sisters were inside. The infection had begun. On the bridge, Admiral Kethver watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos. Red warning symbols bloomed across his fleet like a plague. Ship after ship reported hull breaches. Internal sensors showed impossibly fast contacts moving through corridors, leaving death in their wake. What are they? Vexton shrieked. An explosion somewhere below made the deck shake. Humans, Kethver growled. But not like any humans he had studied. These moved too fast, hit too hard, survived things that should kill any organic being. Captain Emma Davis landed in the flagship's command center like an avenging angel. Entry had been perfect, punching through a viewing window that shattered into a million glittering fragments. Criterion bridge crew scrambled for weapons, but she was already moving. Time seemed to slow as her enhanced reflexes kicked in. She could see the energy beams crawling through the air toward her, could calculate their trajectories and adjust her position accordingly. Her rifle was an extension of her will, each shot placed with surgical precision. The bridge became a slaughterhouse. Purple Criterion blood painted the walls. Davis stepped over twitching bodies, her armor sensors already interfacing with the ship's command systems. The AI in her helmet translated the alien script in real time. "Colonel, I have the bridge," she reported over the neural link. "Outstanding, Captain. All units, execute Protocol 7. Davis smiled coldly. Protocol 7. Turn the enemy's weapons against them. Her fingers flew over the alien controls. Outside, the flagship's massive guns began to swivel toward its own fleet. Across the Criterion Armada, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers, each one a product of billions of dollars in enhancement and training, tore through ships designed for space combat, not boarding actions. The Criterions had shields against energy weapons and armor against kinetic strikes. They had no defense against humans who had turned themselves into living weapons. Sergeant Rodriguez found himself in the Dreadnought's reactor chamber. A massive space thrummed with barely contained energy. 3 Criterion tech priests stood before the control systems, their 6 arms moving in frantic patterns as they tried to respond to the alerts flooding in. "Blake, Harrison, take them down," Rodriguez ordered. Everyone else set charges. The firefight was brief and brutal. Criterion. Energy weapons met human kinetic shields in a display that would have been beautiful if it weren't so deadly. When the smoke cleared, Rodriguez's squad stood among the bodies of the alien engineers. "Charge is set, Sergeant," Blake reported. She was bleeding from a gash in her armor, but the suit's medical systems had already sealed the wound. "Should we evacuate?" Rodriguez looked at the reactor readings. The Criterions had tried to initiate an emergency shutdown, but his squad had interrupted them. Core temperature was climbing. Containment fields were fluctuating. In 12 minutes, this ship would become a small star. "Negative. We hold here." He checked his ammunition count. "Still plenty left. Make sure no one stops the party." "Sarge," Harrison said quietly. "That's a one-way ticket. I know." Rodriguez opened a channel to Colonel Hawkins. "Sir, reactor's going critical." "We'll keep it that way." There was a pause. When Hawkins replied, his voice carried respect and sorrow in equal measure. "Understood." "Sergeant, it's been an honor." Rodriguez turned to his squad. 9 soldiers who had followed him across a dozen worlds, who had trusted him with their lives. Now he was asking for their deaths. "Anyone wants to leave, now is the time," he said. "No shame in it." Blake checked her rifle. And miss the fireworks? Not a chance. Harrison nodded. Hellhounds don't leave anyone behind. That includes you, Sarge. One by one, the others voiced their agreement. Rodriguez felt his throat tighten. These were the best soldiers he had ever served with, the best humans he had ever known. All right then. Defensive positions. They'll be coming hard once they realize what we're doing. His squad spread out around the reactor chamber. Each took a position with overlapping fields of fire. The massive viewports showed the space battle raging outside. Crytherian ships fired on each other as human soldiers turned their weapons against them. Explosions bloomed like flowers in the void. The first wave of Crytherian security forces arrived 3 minutes later. They came in hard, energy weapons blazing. Rodriguez's squad met them with disciplined fire. Each human was worth 100 Crytherians in close combat. Enhanced bodies moved with inhuman speed. Armor shrugged off hits that would have shredded. Tank plating got, but the Crytherians kept coming. Wave after wave threw themselves at the reactor chamber. For every one that fell, 2 more appeared. Rodriguez felt his ammunition running low. His armor reported multiple breaches. The medical systems pumped him full of combat drugs to keep him fighting. 5 minutes to core overload, Blake reported. She was down to her sidearm now, her rifle empty. Hold the line, Rodriguez ordered. Through the viewport, he could see escape pods launching from nearby ships. Not Crytherian pods, human ones. His brothers and sisters had completed their missions and were evacuating. Good. Some of them would make it home. Another wave of Crytherians crashed against their position. Harrison went down. His chest armor cracked open by concentrated fire. Martinez dragged him behind cover, but Rodriguez could see it was too late. The big man's vitals flatlined on the tactical display. 3 minutes. More of his squad fell. Chun took an energy beam to the head. Her helmet saved her life, but she was unconscious. Park's left arm hung useless at his side. The armor fused into a twisted mess. 1 minute. Only 4 of them were still fighting. The Crytherians had stopped coming. Perhaps they had finally realized it was too late. Or perhaps they were simply out of soldiers to throw at the humans. Rodriguez slumped against a control panel. His armor was more red than black now, painted with his own blood and that of his enemies. But they had done it. They had held the line. "Hey, Sarge," Lake said. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the wall. "You know what?" "What's that, Blake? We did good?" Rodriguez smiled. Outside the viewport, he could see the human colony below. Still there. Still alive. 3 million people who would see another sunrise because of what happened here today. Double quotes. "Yeah, Blake, we did good." The reactor went critical. For a brief moment, Danny Rodriguez existed as pure energy. Then he was gone, along with his squad and a significant portion of the Crytherian fleet. But their sacrifice was not. Commander Lisa Morgan watched her tactical display in stunned silence. The Crytherian fleet that had seemed unstoppable just minutes ago was now destroying itself. Ships fired on their own allies. Explosions rippled through the enemy formation, like dominoes falling. And at the center of each dying ship was a green dot, a human transponder. "Commander, I'm reading friendly signals from 17 Crytherian vessels," Amy Chon reported. Her voice shook with excitement and disbelief. They're turning the alien weapons on each other." Lisa couldn't speak. She had commanded soldiers for 15 years. She had seen bravery and sacrifice. But she had never seen anything like this. 300 humans had fallen from space and turned an entire fleet into chaos. "Should we launch our fighters?" Jake Sullivan asked. The young lieutenant looked ready to join the battle himself. Lisa found her voice. "Yes, all fighters. Immediate launch." Target any ship not broadcasting a friendly signal. Our soldiers have given us an opening. We're going to use it. Across the colony, pilots ran to their craft. These weren't the advanced fighters of Earth's core fleets. They were old, patched together with spare parts and prayers. But they were flown by colonists defending their home. That made them dangerous. Sarah Miller strapped into her fighter's cockpit. She had been a cargo pilot before the war. Now she flew combat missions in a ship held together by determination and duct tape. Her hands moved over the controls with practiced ease. Systems check. Weapons hot. Engine start. This is Miller. Ready for launch. Roger that, Miller. You are clear for takeoff. Good hunting. The fighter leaped from the hangar into a sky full of fire. Sarah had to dodge immediately as debris from a destroyed Criterion cruiser tumbled past. The space above the colony had become a graveyard. Alien ships burned and broke apart. Escape pods fled in all directions. Form up on me, Squadron Leader Chun ordered. He was Amy's older brother, one of the few professional military pilots the colony had. We hit them while they're confused. Target their engines. Keep them from running. Sarah fell into formation with 11 other fighters. Together, they streaked toward a Criterion destroyer that was trying to break away from the battle. Its weapons were firing wildly, trying to hit something, anything. But the human soldiers inside had done their work well. The ship's targeting. Systems were offline. Attack run in 3, 2, 1. Break. The squadron split apart, each fighter taking a different angle. Sarah dove beneath the destroyer's bulk, her fighter's small size letting her slip past its point defense guns. She lined up her shot on the ship's main engine cluster. Her missiles were antiques, but at this range, they would do the job. Fox 2. 4 missiles streaked from her fighter. They impacted in a chain of explosions that tore through the destroyer's engines. The massive ship lurched, its acceleration cut to nothing. It began to drift, helpless. Good hit, Miller. Next target. Inside the crippled destroyer, Captain Emma Davis continued her work. She had taken control of 3 ships now, using their own communication systems to spread confusion through the Criterion fleet. Her fingers flew over alien controls as she sent false orders, contradictory commands, anything to keep the enemy off balance. Captain Davis, this is Colonel Hawkins. What's your status? 3 ships under control, sir. Working on a 4th. The Criterions are starting to catch on, though. They're shutting down their comm networks. Doesn't matter. We've done enough. Begin extraction. That's an order. Davis looked at the bridge around her. Criterion bodies lay where they had fallen. The ship's commander had tried to self-destruct rather than let humans take his vessel. She had stopped him. Barely. Understood, sir. Extracting now. She set the ship's weapons to continue firing on a random pattern, then made her way to an escape pod. Her armor was scarred and pitted from a dozen firefights. The power reserves were down to 30%. But she was alive. The escape pod launched just as colonial fighters arrived to finish off the destroyer. Davis watched through the small viewport as missiles tore the ship apart. Another Criterion vessel removed from the board. How many was that now? She had lost count. On the planet below, civilians emerged from their shelters to witness something impossible. The sky that had been full of enemy ships was now full of explosions. Burning debris fell like meteors. The mighty Criterion armada was eating itself alive. 8-year-old Tommy Wilson pressed his face against the shelter window. His mother tried to pull him back, but he wouldn't budge. He had to see. Had to watch the lights in the sky. Are we winning, Mom? He asked. His mother, Patricia, didn't know how to answer. An hour ago, they had been preparing for occupation or death. Now the enemy fleet was destroying itself. It didn't seem real. I think so, baby. I think we are. In space, the battle reached its climax. The explosion of the Criterion dreadnought was visible from the planet's surface, a new star that bloomed and faded in seconds. The blast wave caught 3 nearby ships, adding them to the growing debris field. Colonel Rick Hawkins watched from the bridge of a captured frigate. Of the 300 soldiers who had made the drop, he had confirmed 212. Still alive. Each loss was a name, a face, a friend. But they had done the impossible. They had saved the colony. Sir, the remaining Criterion ships are requesting terms, a soldier reported. Private Alex Woods had lost his left arm in the fighting, but he had still managed to take control of the frigate's communication systems. Terms? Hawkins laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Put them on screen. A Criterion appeared on the main display. Its 4 eyes were wide, with what Hawkins had learned to recognize as fear. Its scales, normally a proud purple, had faded to a sick gray. Human commander, the alien said. Its translator made its voice sound mechanical. We request cessation of hostilities. We will withdraw. You'll do more than withdraw, Hawkins said. You'll run. You'll run all the way back to your empire. And you'll tell them what happened here. You'll tell them that humans don't use rules. When our people are threatened, we use whatever works. This is not warfare, the Criterion protested. This is madness. You threw your soldiers at us like missiles. You turned our own ships against us. You fight without honor. Hawkins stood up from the command chair. Even through the screen, his presence was intimidating. The scars on his face seemed to glow in the bridge lighting. Honor? You came here to enslave 3 million civilians. You bombarded families, children. Don't talk to me about honor. He paused, letting his words sink in. You have 5 minutes to begin your withdrawal. Any ship still in this system after that will be destroyed. The screen went dark. Around Hawkins, his soldiers watched the remaining Criterion ships begin to move. Engines flared as the aliens ran for the system's edge. They had come with over 400 vessels. Less than 100 were leaving. Should we pursue, sir? Woods asked. No. Let them run. Let them spread the word. Hawkins turned to his communications. Officer, get me Commander Morgan. Lisa's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted but alive. Behind her, the Colonial Command Center buzzed with activity. The celebration had not yet begun. There was too much work to do. Colonel Hawkins, I don't know what to say. You saved us all. We did our job, Commander. Nothing more. Hawkins' expression softened slightly. How are your people? Alive. Thanks to you and your soldiers. The shelters held. Casualties were lighter than we feared. We can rebuild. Good. We'll help with search and rescue until the relief fleet arrives. My people need something to do anyway. Sitting still makes them nervous. Lisa smiled. It was the first time she had smiled in days. Colonel, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How? How did you survive that drop? The speeds you were traveling. It should have been impossible. Hawkins was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Commander, when I joined the 77th, they told me something. They said humans are the only species in the galaxy that will look at the impossible and ask, but what if we tried anyway? Today, we tried anyway. The connection ended. Lisa stood in her command center, watching the tactical display clear of enemy contacts. Outside, colonial fighters were returning to base. The sky was clearing. The sun would rise tomorrow on a free world. Chief Engineer Robert Park worked through the night. The colony's infrastructure had taken heavy damage. Power grids were down. Water systems were compromised. But it could be fixed. All of it could be fixed, because they were alive to fix it. Chief, We've got the main reactor back online. His assistant reported. Janet Clark was covered in grease and soot, but she was smiling. Power should be restored to Sector 7 within the hour. Good work. What about the shield generators? That's going to take longer. Maybe a week. But the Crytherians aren't coming back anytime soon. Park nodded. He had seen the enemy flee, had watched them run from 300 humans who had done the impossible. The colony's shields might be down, but they had a new defense now. Fear. The galaxy would remember what happened here. In the medical centers, doctors worked to save lives. Most of the injuries were from the bombardment. Burns, trauma, radiation exposure. But mixed among the colonists were soldiers from the 77th. Their injuries were different. Wounds that should have been fatal. Damage that no human should survive. Doctor. Helen Ross examined one of the soldiers. Sergeant Maria Santos had 6. The Crytherian dreadnought died in a flash of light that outshone the local star. Colonel Rick Hawkins watched from the bridge of his captured destroyer as the explosion consumed 3 enemy vessels. The blast wave rocked even his ship 30,000 kilometers away. On his tactical display, friendly transponders winked out. Rodriguez and his squad gone in an instant of stellar fury. Rest easy, hellhounds, Hawkins said quietly. Around him, the bridge crew bowed their heads in a moment of silence. Then they went back to work. There would be time to mourn later. The battle was not over yet. Sir, I'm counting 43 Crytherian ships still operational, Captain Emma. Davis reported. She had taken over the tactical station, her fingers flying over controls designed for 6 armed aliens. They're regrouping. Looks like they're planning to run. Let them try, Hawkins said. He opened a channel to all remaining 77th soldiers. All units, this is Hawkins. Phase 3. Don't let them escape. I want witnesses to carry our message. Across the battlefield, enhanced soldiers pushed damaged systems beyond their limits. Ships that should have been dead lurched back to life. Weapons that had been silent spoke again. The Crytherians found their escape routes blocked by their own vessels, now under human control. On the planet below, Commander Lisa Morgan watched the impossible unfold. The tactical display showed a battle that defied every principle she had learned at the Academy. Ships fighting themselves. Soldiers surviving in conditions that should be instantly fatal. Physics bent to the human will. Commander, look at this, Jake Sullivan called out. He brought up a feed from one of their surviving satellites. The colonial fighters are joining the battle. Lisa watched 12 old fighters streak toward the enemy. They were outdated, outgunned, and outmatched. But they were flown by colonists who had just witnessed a miracle that made them believers. And believers were dangerous. Sarah Miller pushed her fighter's engine past redline. The old bird screamed in protest, but she held together. Ahead, a Crytherian frigate was trying to break for open space. Its point defense guns swiveled toward her, but Sarah didn't flinch. She had seen soldiers fall from heaven and live. A few energy beams didn't scare her anymore. Miller, you're too close, her squadron leader warned. Just close enough, Sarah replied. She fired everything she had. Missiles, guns, even ejected her empty fuel pods as improvised kinetic weapons. The frigate's shields flickered under the assault. For a moment, nothing happened. Then secondary explosions rippled along its hull. Something critical had been hit. The frigate began to tumble. Sarah pulled up hard, gravity pushing her into her seat. Her fighter groaned but obeyed. Behind her, the alien ship broke apart, another casualty in humanity's impossible victory. Admiral Keffer huddled in his escape pod, watching his fleet die. 4 eyes tracked the destruction of everything he had built. His grand armada reduced to scrap by 300 humans. It was impossible. It was madness. It was happening. "Admiral," his pilot said, voice shaking, "we're being targeted." On the pod's small screen, Kethver saw a human fighter approaching. Not one of the enhanced soldiers, just a regular colonial pilot in an obsolete craft. The fighter matched their speed easily, weapons locked but not firing. "They're sending a message," the pilot reported. "Audio only." Kethver listened to the human voice. It was female, young, but hard as iron. "This is Lieutenant Sarah Miller, Colonial Defense Force. By order of Colonel Hawkins, you are being allowed to escape. You will return to your empire. You will tell them what happened here. You will tell them that humans protect their own. And if you ever threaten a human world again, we won't be so merciful." The fighter peeled away. Kethver slumped in his seat. Merciful? They had destroyed his entire fleet. They had killed thousands of his warriors. But as he looked at the planet below, still blue and green and alive, he understood. They could have killed everyone. They chose to let some escape. The message was clear. Humans could be monsters when needed. But they chose when to be monsters. That choice made them more terrifying than any creature Kethver had ever faced. 3 days later, the Earth Relief Fleet arrived to find a battlefield frozen in victory. Admiral Patricia Stone stood on her command bridge, staring at the tactical analysis in disbelief. Her fleet of 50 ships had come expecting to find ruins. Instead, they found a saved colony and the wreckage of the enemy. How? Was all she could ask. Colonel Hawkins met her via hologram. He looked exhausted, his scarred face drawn with fatigue and loss, but his gray eyes still held that predatory gleam. "We fell, Admiral. We fell faster and harder than they thought possible. Sometimes that's all it takes." Stone shook her head. "Colonel, what you did, it shouldn't have worked. The physics alone." "Admiral, with respect, physics is just another enemy. And humans don't lose to enemies. We find ways around them." The memorial service was held 1 week later. 218 soldiers of the 77th stood in perfect formation. Each wore dress uniforms over bodies that had been broken and rebuilt in the furnace of war. They faced a simple monument of black stone, 82 names carved deep, with Danny Rodriguez and his squad at the center. The entire colony had come. 3 million souls packed the streets, stood on rooftops, pressed against windows. They had come to honor the fallen, to thank the living, to witness history. Lisa Morgan stood at the podium. She had prepared a speech, but looking at the crowd, at the soldiers, at the names on the stone, words seemed inadequate. She spoke from the heart instead. 1 week ago, defeat was certain. Our shields were failing. Our defenses were crumbling. Death had come for us all. She paused, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. Then Earth's deadliest soldiers hit the ground. They fell from heaven through hell itself. They did the impossible because we needed them to. Because that's what humans do. She turned to face the 77th, these men and women who had redefined warfare, who had looked at certain death and laughed. "You gave us our lives, our futures. Our children will grow up free because of you. We can never repay that debt, but we will remember. Every generation will know the story. The day 300 fell from the sky and saved us all." Colonel Hawkins stepped forward. His voice was rough with emotion he rarely showed. "Sergeant Rodriguez, Private Blake, Private Harrison, Corporal Martinez, all of you who gave everything." He saluted the monument. "You are not gone. You live. In every sunrise this colony sees. In every child who grows up free. In every human who refuses to accept defeat. That is your monument. That is your victory." The 77th saluted as one. Behind them, 3 million colonists raised their hands in thanks. A moment held for 10 heartbeats. Then Hawkins turned to his soldiers. "Hellhounds, mount up!" They moved, with perfect precision, back to their dropships. There were other colonies, other threats. The 77th never stopped, never rested, because somewhere in the galaxy, humans needed them. As the dropships lifted off, Tommy Wilson broke free from his Z. Mother and ran forward. He waved frantically at the departing soldiers. "Thank you," he shouted. "Thank you for saving us." One soldier paused at the dropship door. Captain Emma Davis looked down at the boy and smiled. She snapped a perfect salute before disappearing. Inside, the door closed. The engines roared. The 77th rose into the sky and vanished among the stars. 10 years passed. The Battle of Kepler 442b became required study at every military academy. The monument drew visitors from across human space. And in the depths of the galaxy, other species spoke in whispers about the humans. The ones who would not accept defeat. The ones who would break the universe itself to protect their own. Tommy Wilson grew up and joined the Colonial Defense Force. On his first day of training, his instructor asked why he had enlisted. "Because when I was 8, I saw soldiers fall. From heaven," Tommy said. "I saw them do the impossible. And I realized that's what humans do. When defeat is certain, when hope is gone, when the universe itself says we should lose, that's when we're most dangerous. That's when we win." The instructor smiled. Another recruit who understood. Another human who would stand between the darkness and the light. The cycle continued. And somewhere in the void, traveling faster than physics should allow, the 77th Orbital Drop Shock Battalion continued their eternal watch, ready to fall, ready to fight, ready to remind the universe that humans had removed the word impossible from their vocabulary. They had replaced it with something far more powerful. Watch us. The end